Canada, second largest country in the world, and possibly the smuggest. People around the globe universally admire Canadians, and Canadians universally hate Torontonians. Canada, stretching from sea to shining me. I'm Rick Green, and I'm as Canadian as a hockey puck, and far smarter. I was born here, my father was born here, and my grandfather was born over there, in England. Sort of like Canada was. It has taken almost 2 centuries to break our ties with Mother Britain and become an independent nation. One with its own identity, no longer dependent on Britain, but rather... Canadian independence has been 2 prime ministers forward, 1 prime minister back. So, let's meet the PM team.
Number 1, John A. Chuggerlug MacDonald. Number 2, sober Alexander Mackenzie. 3, John the 10th Abbott. 4, hotshot John Thompson. Crackpot Mackenzie Bowell. Chunky Charles Tupper. Lucky 7, Wilfred the Tongue Laurier. Rowdy Robert Borden. Arthur the Meanie Meehan. Mackenzie the Terminator King. Richard Dick to you Bennett. Uncle Louis Laurent. Unlucky 13, John Crazy Legs Diefenbaker. Lester Peacemaker Pearson. Pierre Hot to Trot Trudeau. Fumbling Joe Clark. Bumbling John Turner. Brian Mr. Humility Mulrooney. Kim the Official Sacrificial Campbell. 20, Tough Guy Jacques Chrétien. And 21, Paul Mr. Minority Martin. All right, Liberals on the left, Tories on the right, every other party in the middle.
Talk about 2 solitudes.
Married men on the left, bachelors and bachelorettes on the right, got married while in office in the middle.
Ah, Mr. Trudeau.
And got divorced while in office?
Ah, Mr. Trudeau.
All the Johns on the left, everyone else on the right.
Mr. King? Not that kind of John.
Those who were in office more than 8 years on the left, 2 years or less on the right, everyone else in the middle.
Apparently, we either love them or hate them.
French Canadians on the left, English Canadians on the right, everyone else in the middle. Those who won no elections on the left, those who won just 1 election in the middle, those who won 2 or more on the right.
Boy, who needs elections?
Whites on the left, all other races, creeds, and colors on the right. Catholics on the left, Protestants on the right, Jews, Muslims, Hindus, and Buddhists in the middle. Women on the left, men on the right. And finally, British heritage on the left, French heritage on the right, everyone else in the middle.
Ah, Diefenbaker. All right, hit the shower. So clearly our British roots run very deep and right to the top.
This is the story of Canadian independence from Britain. This is the story of our prime ministers, their hard work, their bumbling buffoonery, and their sophisticated chicanery. All paid for by your tax dollars. Yes, history bites Mother Britain.
First, be warned. Everything you know about Canada is probably wrong because even the historians can't agree on anything. Canada didn't gain independence through war like America or civil disobedience like India or mob violence like the French Revolution. No. We had all 3 in sensible Canadian doses. And everyone knows this nation was founded without violence. Hooey! We did a lot of things that moved us away from Britain, but we often gained more independence by things we didn't do. Simple example?
Crisis in the British Empire. As Greece and Turkey take up arms over disputed territory, Britain beseeches her loyal dominions to send troops if war should erupt, and Canada stands ready.
After losing 50,000 Canadians in the Great War, we are delighted to be asked to send more boys to die in some distant land. I will have to check with Parliament. Yeah. Government is on summer vacation. They're all up at the cottage,
Before her loyal subjects can be summoned from the cottage, the British government is defeated, and the new Prime Minister rescinds the call for troops.
Sorry about that.
Now you know Canada has a long and proud history of peacekeeping and other UN missions, but as I warned you off the top, what you know may not be the whole story. Time and again, we also sent troops to defend the British Empire until a couple of world wars took the fun out of the fighting. Wow. Here's another fact everyone knows about Canada, whose passionate support was the key to Confederation.
Was it Sir John A. MacDonald? Was it Charles Tupper? Was it Alexander Mackenzie? The correct answer is Edward Cardwell, Britain's colonial secretary.
That's right. As we'll see, by 1860, a major force pushing for Canada to become independent from Britain was Britain.
Her Majesty's government eagerly and anxiously looks forward to the Canadian colonies becoming more independent, especially financially. You see, the colonies are very young, like a teenager. And like every teenager, Canada is becoming a very expensive pain. We believe it's time for Canada to move out on her own. We'll even help her pack her stuff and find her someplace nice to set up a capital city.
The story of Canada becoming independent from Britain could well have been the story of Canada becoming independent from France, but it wasn't. Why?
Canada, today a bustling nation. Long ago, nothing but natural resources waiting to be turned into cars, TV sets, and atomic bombs. The naive natives have no idea how valuable the land is. They simply live on it. But Europeans changed that. The Vikings set up camp, but soon leave at the request of the Beafuck people. It's a last request. Then comes Giovanni Caboto, known as John Cabot because it's easier to pronounce. Cabot claims Canada for England and reports there are inexhaustible amounts of cod. Modern technology proves him wrong. Jacques Cartier then claims Canada for France. He persuades natives to return with him to be exposed to European ideas and diseases. Then comes Henry Hudson. He claims Canada for England again. Trying to reach the Orient, Hudson goes north and west, south, west, northwest, until his crew's had enough. Others follow. Samuel de Champlain believes that the route to China is up the St. Lawrence River. He rapidly learns otherwise. British and French ships continue probing for a route around Canada until someone discovers that the little beaver makes a great hat. Many great hats. Canada's no longer an obstacle, it's something to fight over.
The long war for control of Canada comes down to one battle, the Plains of Abraham. The French control the fur trade in southern Canada, and the British want it. So 9,000 British troops land on the south shore and lay siege to Quebec City on the north shore. British General Wolfe begins bombarding French General Montcalm and his troops. Jake? What do you mean, wrong era? This is the wrong planet. Look, the script was very specific about what kind of military... Fine. So, British General Wolfe bombards the French zombie lizards, and all of his attacks fail. Months pass, his men lose heart. Finally, one night, the British robot warriors sneak across the river and scale the cliffs. Surprised, the zombie lizards leave the safety of the citadel of Quebec to battle on the Plains of Abraham. It's a crucial blunder. In the ensuing 15-minute melee, the robotic General Wolfe and the other robot, General Montcalm, are both killed. And Canada falls under the control of the British robot warrior guys. For the next 100 years or so, the British run a growing collection of Canadian colonies. And they do it with something called the Family Compact.
First, I am delighted to be the new Governor of Canada. I have been appointed by the Foreign Office in London to report to the Parliament in London, report to the Queen in London. Or is it a king? Oh, wait. Oh, no, it's a queen this year. Handsome woman. Now, every colony will be run by a lieutenant governor who reports to me. There is an elected legislature which reports to them, and of course, the voters have no say-so. Unless I say so. It's actually all a lot of input from my rich and powerful friends. You see, power flows down and up a bit. And there's going around. Really, it's all run by the family compact. It's a who's who decides what's what. Any questions?
Well done, Dad.
Good show, brother.
I like it, Uncle.
By 1776, the Americans have had enough of British rule and begin fighting for independence. Washington crosses the Delaware, Paul Revere rides, and 13 years later, the 13 colonies are a new nation. But in Canada, the sentiments are somewhat softer.
The British are coming! The British are coming!
Quasi-democracy with quasi-dictatorship made for a queasy compromise. After seeing Americans revolt over taxation without representation, Canadian colonists became increasingly vocal and increasingly loud until they were heard across the colonies in Upper and Lower Canada.
You've no idea what's what here in Upper Canada.
We are the true voice of Lower
They
Canada.
will be listening to what the weak
The
folk
Agent
say
General
unto them.
is
And
a
I
council
cast
of
it
lies
will be
and
moved that
deceits.
high and mighty bloody
Nous sommes
family compact
no,
to pay.
no, monsieur, you are wrong.
Oh,
you are
shut your
wrong.
cake hole, you bloody crackpot. You don't know what you're talking about.
We hate the Anglais. We have drawn up a list of resolutions.
It's undemocratic.
We want a say in our future,
with
real power and an elected assembly. Go! Mon Dieu!
We're agreed, laddie. William Lyon Mackenzie.
Oh, je m'appelle Jean Papineau.
Put her there, je m'appelle.
The Upper Canada Rebellion began right here near the intersection of Yonge and Eglinton, back when Toronto was called York, over 100 and something years ago, in 1837. That's when this man, actor Wayne Robson,
William Lyon Mackenzie.
a rabble-rousing newspaperman, addressed a tavern full of angry farmers.
We've had it with the family compact. They smashed my printing presses, but they can't silence our voices. He's with me. Right, all right, come on.
A rebellion, this is gonna be so... British troops march north to meet the rebels near what is now Maple Leaf Gardens. Mackenzie's rebels square off against
Queen Victoria's regulars.
Queen Victoria's regulars? Duck! Uh-oh, they've seen us. We couldn't get permission to use real guns.
I'm out of here.
He shoots, he runs.
The British are coming.
A few people were killed, and Mackenzie King ran north, and then west, and then south, all the way to America. Lower down the river in Lower Canada, Joseph Papineau inflamed fellow French Canadians with talk of rights, power, respect. Papineau talked the talk, but he didn't walk the walk. He ran the ran all the way to the American border before the first shots were even fired. But unlike the Upper Canada Rebellion, which fizzled out in a day, the Lower Canada Rebellion fizzled out after 3 or 4 days. Still, it was not in vain. Well, not exactly.
By 1838, the Upper and Lower Canada rebellions had flared and fizzled, but colonists were still itching for a bigger say in their future. And helping Canada become independent of Britain is Britain.
Hello, you beaver-hunting, syrup-boiling folk. My name is Lord Durham. I've been sent here by Her Majesty's government to help you colonists avoid another rebellion. Now, do you have any ideas? Any thoughts? Any complaints? Yes, one at a time. I spent 1 day in Toronto and several days in Montreal, and here are my suggestions.
We want responsible government.
And elected officials.
I recommend a move to responsible government and the governor's advisors to become elected officials.
And elected officials like you, sir. We want control.
And
Complete
control of your own internal affairs. And I recommend the uniting of Upper and Lower Canada.
I smell a rat.
Papineau's nose is right. In his excellent book, Bastards and Boneheads, Will Ferguson points out that the 1928 book, Great Men of Canada, devotes an entire chapter to Lord Durham. Yet in George Woodcock's 1980 book, 100 Great Canadians, no Durham. And then in the 1986 book, 1001 Questions About Canada, Durham makes the list of top 10 despised Canadians. Why? Well, because in Lower Canada, which is now called Canada East and will eventually become Quebec, the French are in the majority. Whereas in Upper Canada, which is now called Canada West and will eventually become Ontario, the English are in the majority. But if you combine the colonies into one, aha, suddenly the French are in the minority. Durham's goal is actually to eliminate French culture. This is gentle genocide.
Quoi? The French colonists are a people with no history and no literature. A doomed people destined to be absorbed by a superior British culture. The superior political and practical intelligence of the English cannot be for a moment disputed.
Oh, they're my dead body!
No, mine actually.
Bloody Canadian weather.
So the colonies do come together, but French Canadians are so cheesed off, the politicians have to draw up a document that recognizes and codifies the differences. Upper Canada and Lower Canada become Canada West and Canada East, and the capital is right here in Kingston, Ontario, in Kingston, Canada West. Then the capital was moved here to Montreal, but there was still too little democracy and too much monarchy. When the government offered to pay for the damage done during the rebellions, many people thought, hey, you're rewarding treason. Ongoing frustrations boiled over. There were riots in the streets. And Montreal lost any chance of becoming the capital of Confederation.
The fathers of Confederation deliberately choose a different path from the American revolutionaries.
The Boston Tea Party.
The Charlottetown Wine Party.
Muskets and cannonballs.
Muscatel and fancy balls.
Gunsmoke at the Battle of Concord.
Cigar smoke in a bottle of Concord grapes.
Spilling the blood of the redcoats.
Oh, spilling red wine on my new coat.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Lunch, brunch, and a lambada.
Tough decisions on the Constitution.
Tough decisions on the condiments.
Poring over a draft declaration.
Pour us an order of draft beers.
The result? America was a weak coalition of very strong states, so John A. MacDonald made sure Canada's federal government was large and in charge. Why? Because the United States had fractured. The lack of strong central government had led to a very uncivil civil war. And the U.S. Civil War impacted Canada in other ways.
The treacherous British helped the Confederate cause. They lengthened the Civil War by 2 years. We demand satisfaction. Give us Canada, we'll call it even.
England does not give away chunks of empire. And besides which, Canada is actually becoming independent of us. Right, Canada?
As of today, July 1st, 1867, Canada is free and independent. A sovereign nation. Except, of course, for military affairs. And foreign policy. And, of course, London will have to approve our laws and any changes to our constitution. And, of course, co-sign any trade agreements and control our currency. Oh, friends, you'll be happy to know that we have chosen a site for our new capital city.
Toronto! Montreal! Schenectady!
No. Ottawa!
Ottawa what?
Well, Queen Victoria picked the site out herself, but don't worry, it'll be lovely by the time we're through with it.
You got to remember, Canada was created by the British North America Act. John A. MacDonald got a knighthood for his efforts. Gives you an idea of how happy Britain was to see us go. Or, well, go off a little. They'd still need us around.
Early on, Canada is as British as Big Ben. British citizens move freely between Canada and Mother Britain. And after MacDonald is defeated due to some shady financial shenanigans, in comes another Scot, Alexander Mackenzie.
G'day! I'm Alexander McKenzie, and I got millions of square miles of fertile Canadian land just waiting for you to explore and exploit. So come on out to Canada. Sure, enjoy the Lake Gru, but there's plenty of it. Do we have a class system? Well, of course we do. But all the lower classes, well, they be natives, so we can all feel mighty superior. This land was their land. This land is our land. Join all the thousands of Brits that have come here and made their fortune. And then they've got home to buy something nice for theirs not to buy that's very nice here in Canada, except take it back to Britain, eh? You come here, you make your money, and then you bugger off home, you pack of bastards.
After the sleaze and scandal of the MacDonald reign, Alexander McKenzie was a refreshing change. Thrifty, honest, reliable. In fact, so honest, he's voted out after one term. Back comes John A. MacDonald.
I was born a British subject, and I'll die a British subject.
Then Canada goes through prime ministers faster than a bad golfer goes through golf balls. First to tee off is John Abbott, a duffer who's playing out of his league. Sickness puts him in the rough, and he's an unhealthy scratch. In sweeps John Sparrow Thompson, a rising shot maker. He's a pro, capable of avoiding the hazards to shoot a hole-in-one. They tout him as another Sir John A., but while in England, he has one stroke too many and is eliminated in sudden death. Next to shoot off his mouth is Mackenzie BOWELL, a handicapped player who tees off on everything until every one is teed off. His claptrap lands him in the sand trap, and the Masters bogey him off the fairway. And finally, former Father of Confederation Charles Tupper. He's brought in as a last-minute sub, but he's subpar, shooting a low 69. As in days in office, it remains a course record. When we come back, the first French-Canadian Prime Minister, and the first to start moving Canada out of Britain's orbit. A silver-tongued Montreal lawyer named Wilfred Laurier predicts that the 20th century will belong to Canada. As our Prime Minister at the start of it, he has reason to know. But Laurier also knows that Canada can't really become Canada if it's so British. So, when Queen Victoria has her silver jubilee, he travels to London with a hidden agenda.
It was England who gave the Dominion of Canada its precious laws. England gave us our parliamentary system. And England continues to give us so much, more than we have asked for or need.
Laurier charms the British, and they assume it's mutual.
Both Australia and New Zealand have proposed closer ties to Britain.
Yes, they should have it.
We are proposing closer ties within the Empire and some sort of military force.
Excellent. I think you should propose it.
Now, see here. What about Her Majesty's wishes?
Of course. I want to honor her wishes.
Excellent then. Good things all around.
After all, it was Queen Victoria herself who encouraged Canada to become independent, to stand alone.
Yes.
Anything else?
Laurier doesn't push the boundaries because Canada does not yet have all of its boundaries. In 1896, gold is found in Canada's Yukon. The ensuing gold rush produces tons of gold and tons of pressure to figure out where America ends and Canada begins.
Now I'd like to sing a little song about it. But the crew heard me sing and they said, do a poem. So here, with apologies to the poet laureate of the Laurier era, Robert Service, we proudly present The Screwing of Johnny Canuck.
There are strange things done down in Washington by government diplomats, and a border dispute had some men of repute scratching their fancy silk hats. For the USA had made some hay by buying Alaska whole, so now they had deeds to a land without trees, stretching almost up to the pole. But no man could say where the boundary lay between the Yanks and the Canucks, and both had to know, 'cause beneath all that snow, there was gold that was worth a few bucks. Now to find out what's where, and to make sure life's fair, nothing beats a committee decision. With some talking and jawing, the line would be drawn, and done with some speed and precision. So Ottawa sent a pair of fair gents who were impartial in all their thoughts. Then the president spoke, and he sent, no joke, 3 zealous patriots. But the last fellow in was a Great Britain, a certain Lord Alverstone. The Canadians knew that though they were just 2, Mother Britain would back up their guns. So the 6 men debated and talk concentrated on the panhandle over the strait. When it came to brass tacks, someone stabbed the boys' backs and sided his vote with the states. There are strange things done down in Washington by government diplomats, and a border dispute had some men of repute scratching their fancy silk hats. For the US of A had made some hay by buying Alaska whole, and dear Lord Alverstone, who was sent by the throne, gave us the shaft, not the pole.
The deal over the Alaskan Panhandle changes a lot of Canadians' attitudes towards Britain and confirms some about America. Then just about the same time that Lord Alverstone let us down, Britain gets itself into another little war, and we can't let them down. Or can we?
Strategically speaking, Great Britain must push those Dutch farmer chappies off the land they've already pushed the African natives off, so that South Africa can be British.
And that concerns Canada because...
If we don't stop the Dutch from kicking the British out of South Africa, they could be over there, kicking the British out of Canada. You know those Hollanders.
Okay, well, we shall not stand in the way of Canadians going to make war on the Boers, but you'll have to arm and train them.
Fine.
And 7,000 Canadians volunteer to go. Imagine today, 7,000 Canadians volunteering to go to war to help the British push the Sri Lankans off their land. A century ago, Canadians were still willing to spill blood to defend Mother Britain, or Britain's imperial holdings. As for actually defending Britain, well, another war was looming. It was a decade away, but everybody was already getting their toys lined up, and the British wanted Canada to pay to play.
Her Majesty's Navy... His Majesty's Navy is in a desperate arms race, building ships so big they fear nothing. They dread naught. Oh, but the ships do cost a lot. Britain needs her colonies to ante up.
Okay, but rather than cough up cash, Canada will build its own navy. Say, 9 ships.
Eh?
If this represents the size of Laurier's navy, this is the size of our navy today. Whereas at the end of World War II, our navy would have been this big. But that comes later. For now, we're building a navy. And Laurier's compromise cost his Liberals the election to the very conservative Robert Borden.
In Britain's hour of need, Prime Minister Laurier has failed to measure up. After all, weapons aren't free. If they were, Canada would have some.
Remember, a lot of Canadians still loved Britain, to death, if necessary. And soon it was, because a lot of nations were building ships, cannons, rifles, and bullets to shoot out of them.
A Serbian anarchist has assassinated Archduke Ferdinand of the Austro-Hungarian Empire.
And that concerns Canada because...
Because you're part of the British Empire. Britain is in charge of your foreign policy, and you are treaty-bound to assist us.
60,000 Canadians die, and that is just 1/3 of 1% of the total war dead. 18 million in all. While the bullets fly and the bodies fall, Borden flip-flops.
This war has nothing to do with Canada. It is a European matter, a continental crisis. The last sputterings of the old empire. The most we can do is provide munitions and supplies, and be an arsenal of democracy. Because we are a democracy of people who have proved that people of all nationalities can live in peace. But it is not an easy peace. We have sacrificed and worked hard to build this nation, and that is why we must stand and fight for Canada, for democracy, for peace. And we will fight! I promise to send 500,000 Canadian soldiers! What did I just say?
With a population of less than 8 million souls, Canada is hard-pressed to deliver on Borden's commitment of 500,000 men. The task of fulfilling Borden's rash promise almost tears Canada apart.
Come on, you lads, let's sign up.
Hey, you chaps over in Quebec there. Come on and join the Canadian Army. We'll show those Jerrys who's who and what's what and save dear old Britannia from...
Fight for England? The same England who produced Lord Durham?
I see. So that's the way it is then. Well, what about saving Mother France, huh?
Tabernacle! Mother France, she abandoned us!
It appears that so few are willing to go, we are going to have to bring in conscription. I appreciate this may not be a popular piece of legislation.
To defend England and France, English and French Canadians almost destroy Canada. That's what historians refer to as stupid.
Do we know the situation at the front?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Prime Minister.
Yes, sir.
Good, then. Let's hear it.
Well, apparently the Huns have stalled our offensive at the Somme.
And it says here we use something called tanks for the first time.
And the Huns are using gas again.
And there's a sale of Eaton.
That's it! I'm going to London to straighten this out.
Excellent. Can you bring back some British papers?
And some scones.
Oh, I love some.
Borden's badgering gets results. As Britain grows more desperate for more troops, Canada cries out more concessions, like fighting under Canadian generals.
I need 15,000 of you fine, young Canadian boys to sacrifice to gain another 50 yards of precious Belgian mud for Her Majesty. Or is it His Majesty? Yes, it's a man this year. His Majesty. Oh, a promotion.
Men, I'm Arthur Curry. I'm Canadian. Yes. And we've been given the job of taking Vimy Ridge. Our allies have lost 200,000 men and have failed to take it. But I have a plan.
Extra, extra, read all about it. 4 Canadian regiments storm and capture impregnable Vimy Ridge, and to the surprise of both German and British commanders, while capturing a record amount of men, landing guns, and suffering over 10,000 killed or wounded.
Curry actually visited the front and drew up a detailed plan.
The Canadians have broken through.
My God!
Oh, it's Curry.
I knew it!
Typical Canadian.
If we'd known these colonial chaps might succeed, we could have prepared to exploit this breakthrough.
Tough like that.
Many historians claim that Canada truly became a nation at Vimy Ridge. In one day, 3,600 Canadian boys died. 3,600. Such was the cost of defending Mother Britain. The First World War ends with the map of Europe pretty much back where it started, only more so, and nobody happy about it. But something had changed for Canada. You see, we went to war because of treaties with Britain, but when it came time to sign the peace treaty, Robert Borden made sure we signed as a separate nation. And Britain, they let us.
We're going to squeeze the German lemon till the pips squeak. They'll pay 20 billion gold marks, surrender land where 7 million people live, the Rhineland demilitarized, and the Saar region will be put under our control. Yeah, but what can we do?
We could have instability, economic chaos, civil war between communists and fascists, rampant inflation, political revolutions, and finally, elect a dictator who will bring us prosperity, jobs, stability, pride, and a war that's 3 times as bad.
More work for us, huh?
As Canada signs the Treaty of Versailles, another killer sweeps across the globe. Influenza, the Spanish flu, killing as many people as the war itself. Now Canadians are sick of war and empires.
Well, apparently, Canada is increasingly ignored by the UK and the USA, so we become a middle power, a broker of international events. And sometimes we broker things until they're broken.
Ottawa contends that Canadians live in a fireproof house, far from flammable materials. So we join the League of Nations, but don't support it. In fact, our very participation is a problem.
Why do Canada and Australia get separate votes? You'll always just say, we agree with Britain.
May I remind you, they have suffered worse casualties in the war than you have.
We agree with Britain.
That's it, we're out of here.
Later, Canada supports Washington's push to get the British to curtail their alliance with the Japanese. Japan, who fought with Britain in World War I, feeling betrayed and isolated, forms an alliance with Hitler. Orientals working with a white supremacist. Brilliant. The Halibut Treaty with the United States is the first treaty Canada signs without Britain's involvement. The first, but not the last.
Canada has signed the Balfour Agreement, in which Britain acknowledges that Canada and the other colonies are indeed all grown up and equal partners.
Extra, extra! Canada gains control over our own foreign and domestic policy by signing the Statute of Westminster, which creates the British Commonwealth, a union of equal partners including Britain, Canada, Newfoundland, South Africa, the Irish Free Republic, Australia.
Signing treaties may not take your breath away, it's just a piece of paper, but so is a marriage certificate, so is a death certificate, so is a stock certificate. And by 1929, stock certificates were just pieces of paper, thanks to the stock market crash.
As the economy goes splat, Prime Minister Mackenzie King is voted out of office. Who better to deal with hard times than millionaire Richard Bennett?
Bennett kind of looked like the evil, greedy villain in the movie It's a Wonderful Life, and he kind of was. Bennett claims he's a self-made millionaire, which must cheese off everyone who works for him. He's certainly self-unmade.
My friends, I love this nation. It will always come first in my heart. And although I was not born here, when I die, I will be honored to be buried here. Thank you. Now, if you'll excuse me, apparently there's a depression or something going on back in Canada.
A kind of Conrad Black of the dirty 30s, Bennett craved a British title. After being booted out of office here, he retired to England, joined the House of Lords, and became the only Canadian Prime Minister not buried in Canada.
Back into power for his third and longest run comes Mackenzie King. As Europe moves toward World War I, the sequel, Britain is led by a drab bureaucrat named Neville Chamberlain.
Canada has a drab bureaucrat who holds seances with his dead mother and gets free medical advice from the spirit of the late Louis Pasteur.
Then Hitler's hordes invade Poland. Britain declares war. But Canada, now sovereign, or well, more sovereign, waits a whole week before saying I do too. In London, Chamberlain is replaced by...
All I can offer you is blood, sweat, toil, and tears. And perhaps a few other bodily fluids. It's going to be messy. But we will never surrender.
I promise you jobs, work, stability, some war, but over there, and no major upsets.
Boring. Bloody Canadians.
We Brits have run into a bit of a sticky wicket, and we need you Canadian chaps to tackle a port called Dieppe. Should be a piece of cake. Not a sticky wicket. We need you to take on a bit of a sticky wicket at Ortona. A tough job for you to do in the Leary Valley near Monte Cassino. To attack a formidable barrier called the Gothic Line. Woohoo! Ah, good, a replacement. Finally.
Extra, extra! Hitler's Gothic Line, which was built to hold out for a month, is breached in 48 hours after a daring assault by Canadian tanks and infantry regiments, which have smashed the gap wide open and swept 10 miles behind enemy lines, seizing the strategic high ground to the surprise of German and British commanders alike!
If we had known the Canadians were coming, I would have stationed more troops. I cannot get reinforcements in position for 4 days.
Good Lord! The Canadians have broken through 10 miles. Oh, well, who knew? We'd better hustle some reinforcements over there to exploit that.
Right. It will take 5 days to...
With our army doing so much of the dirty work, we need replacements. Soldiers wounded 3 and 4 times are being patched up and sent back to the front, which seems back to front. Nation after nation brings in conscription, but not us.
Mackenzie King is determined to avoid Borden's boo-boos. His solution?
We will have conscription if necessary, but not necessarily conscription. Well, it will definitely be a case of one or the other. Then circumstantially, the circumstances will circumscribe our actions as needed or not needed, depending upon the need. We will only be obliged if our obligations require it. That is, if the recruitment requires. Essentially, we will do it only if essential. In other words...
As for Canada and Britain, we boom and they almost go bust. No, really.
Of all the national leaders who started World War II, only Joseph Stalin and Mackenzie King still hold power at the end.
One by totalitarian terror, the other by monotonous momentum.
By 1948, King decides to take his Ouija board and retire. Long live the King, it's Louis time.
Canada's economy goes from like 30th largest to 7th. Meanwhile, Britain's goes from 2nd down to like 5th. And then her defeated enemies, Germany and Japan, pass her by.
Then came the straw that broke the diplomats' back. A Middle East war, the Suez Crisis rocks the UN, and does serious collateral damage to British-Canadian relations.
The Suez Canal runs through our nation. It must be under our national control. Yes. And therefore we have nationalized it.
Oh, the bloody cheek! The canal is private property, a company backed by English investors.
And French investors? Back off, monsieur, or you will force us to do an invasion?
Oh, not us. We'll get the Israelis to do it for us.
Never! We've got to teach these Arabs a lesson. And I will be proud to lead you Canadian lads into battle to keep Egypt French and English.
St. Laurent refuses to back the invasion of Egypt. In fact, he sends in Lester B. Pearson to broker a peaceful settlement. Who needs the Commonwealth when you can be heard at the United Nations?
I have a suggestion.
I am very sorry, but perhaps it is on your end, but it is my money that...
What do you think of this question tonight? Perhaps if we all can agree.
You will No, you don't understand the way it is.
Yeah, the French have sovereign...
Why doesn't the United Nations put together an emergency peacekeeping force and supervise the end of hostilities?
Fine.
Canada's stand heralds the decline of the British Empire and the rise of Canada on the international scene. But it costs St. Laurent votes, because in the 50s, we're still mostly loyal to the royals.
Queen, the royal family are so special. They're so unlike ordinary people.
Scum like us that just work and contribute.
That's right. Well, they're above divorce or sex scandals or being photographed having your toes sucked. They're like a fairy tale.
Without the wolf.
Or the 3 little pigs.
You know, you're not allowed to touch them.
That's right, but they are allowed to touch each other.
Yes, they're very lucky that way.
And then by the late 50s, the Liberals grow arrogant in power.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Ooh. Well, along comes a Tory. He's the most pro-British Prime Minister since MacDonald. And just like MacDonald, he's as Scottish as Dusseldorf.
I have been a candidate in municipal, provincial, and national elections, and I have lost again and again. I have run as House Leader and Party Leader and been defeated every single time. I have led my provincial party to absolutely 0 seats, and now I am your Prime Minister, your savior!
It's the reverse of Churchill and Mackenzie King. Now Canada has a dynamic leader and Britain a bland bureaucrat.
On Canada as a close and trusted ally, though not actually physically close, and I hope to build bridges, though not actual physical bridges, to our allies, the United States. And I'm sure Canada would help us there.
And I have a vision. I see a new Canada. A Canada to the north, not to the south, to the north and to the east, and Britain.
Deef is the first Prime Minister not of British or French descent, and the last who wants to take us back into Mother Britain's bosom. From Pearson onwards, Canada kind of oscillates between its British traditions and American influences.
Canada and the United States signed the Auto Pact, an historic free trade deal involving...
Following Britain's lead, Canada abolished capital punishment. The only exceptions will be killing police officers, prison guards, or goalies.
Political unrest and kidnappings by political radicals has brought a swift government response with the War Measures Act.
Canada has introduced nationwide socialized medicine.
Brian Mulroney has won a landslide majority for his progressive conservatives.
Canada signed the North American Free Trade Agreement.
Critics complain the goods and services tax will hit middle-income Canadians hardest.
Mr. Mulroney vows to turn the Foreign Investment Review Agency around so that it encourages foreign ownership of Canadian...
Canada has a new flag today. The design, a simple maple leaf.
Multiculturalism will be an official policy of Canada.
Mr. Trudeau, a flamboyant, young, energetic leader.
Canada is decriminalizing homosexuality. Mr. Trudeau told an audience of 2,000 that the government does not belong in the bedrooms of Canadians, but he did invite all of the women present back to his... And the Queen visited Canada today to sign the documents that will bring the Constitution home to Canada.
Thank you.
Well,
Goodbye. Good riddance.
goodbye to you.
We're glad you're leaving.
Well, we are free.
Yes, we do need you.
Au revoir.
Philip never trusted
Sayonara.
Until that moment, the patriation of the British North America Act, all of the changes to our Constitution had to be approved by a British appointee, the Governor-General. So this was another big step away from Mother Britain. Then figure in our creation of our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and you see that Canada is now truly independent, with a few ceremonial connections. This was Pierre Elliott Trudeau's legacy, and some Canadians never forgave him for it. Well, royal loyalties die hard. But the fact is, though the Queen still graces some of our coins, our national identity no longer comes from across the pond. It comes from right here.
Hey, Canada, how y'all doing up there?
And from down there.